Planetside 2, a game that originated the dead horse joke, a game that I seriously touched 4 years ago. Well, guess who's back? And guess which class I'm gonna dissect like a fresh roadkill because it's so bafflingly bad, like a crippled horse heading for the glue factory after just one race. With a record-breaking player count in a single server, this FPS game is unique and dear to my heart.
Yeah, didn't someone already break that record?
What? What? How? When?
Spiffy actually broke that shit recently.
Oh, God's fucking damn it, and I can't even be mad about that.
Anyways, that's not today's story. Today we'll take a look at the absolute worst player character class in this massive game. My favorite class that since the beginnings has been used, abused and thrown into the trash like a discarded hooker. I'm of course talking about the Infiltrator, the stealth, recon and marksman, well, mostly, class. Yet before we can delve into my poor Infiltrator and how it was abused harder than an altar boy in a Catholic church, first, what is even Planetside? On a very basic scale, Planetside 2 is a sequel to 2003 first-person shooter that looked like this. And this was the time when Half-Life 2 was a year away. So yeah, it was ugly as fuck and had very backward thinking. And to salt the wound even more, it was one of the rare few subscription-based FPS games. Yes, subscription FPS. Needless to say, it wasn't popular, however, it had some groundbreaking achievements to its name, namely that, like Battlefield series, it offered combined arms gameplay, which simply means foot soldiers, cars, tanks, aircraft, germs and everything including your mom was fighting together. Additionally, the game was also like an open world with a really big one map, for the time at least, also was connected to another large map like it, becoming a very unique execution of this open world with 2003 limited tech. I dare say it was underrated and mainly due to said subscription model. Additionally, Planetside 1 boasted largest player servers at the time for the FPS games as well. Oh, and there's a very unique aspect. Both games to this day still feature 3 separate factions that can battle it out. A very unique and well, often frustrating but also very fun idea, which was executed relatively well. As I mentioned before, Planetside 2 broke and then re-broke the world record featuring 1,200 players in a single map battling it out. As it was in Planetside 1, there are multiple maps capable of hosting many players in each. However, the amount of maps and this global interlinked map from 2003 did not get ported over, which is a shame really, and so were the vehicles and features. Frankly, Planetside 2, well, felt quite cut down. Still, to this day, there are 5 living servers for the game where it started with quite a few more. But regardless, for old time's sake, let's take a look at each. Connery, the home of stat-padding tryhards who stat-pad like no one has stat-padded before. Miller, still filled with Russians and Germans, but the home of the 2 largest Vanu outfits, or at least has-beens. Cobalt, the other European server that no one gives a fuck about. Emerald, America, fuck yeah! Wannabe pro galore. Soltec, hey, what the fuck is that? Where's Watterson? Oh crap, Ceres finally died! Woohoo! Also, why is there people challenging Connery for stat padding trophy? Coming to Planetside 2, from its ancestor, they kept on a few aspects for the game, namely the combined arms principle, 3 big factions, and a massive multiplayer player amounts in the single server. The game came out at the height of the free-to-play model, to which to this day it still stands as one, and I do urge you to try it out. Yet, with Planetside 2, what changed was your character, going from an open inventory design where your equipment ruled how you played. Now in the sequel they changed it to class-based shooter with 6 unique types. Of course you can swap between them and you'll do that quite often. So let's take a look at what they are and how they work. Now in order to offend as many of you as possible, they go basically like this. Light Assault, the basic bitch that decided to sprout wings and poop C4 on everyone, leaving poo stains and brain matter all over the place. It's a class that has the most maneuverability, basic weapon setup with added anti-vehicular capability up close, and in fact it's really good at it. Only lacking thing is that it's useless against aircraft, but at this stage it's more capable than crippled. Engineer, literally the basic bitch, that kind of a thing that blends into the background and eats wall paste. However, as soon as it's not around, you distinctly feel the void. It has the same weapons as Light Assault, and in fact it might as well be copy-pasted. Only the difference is that Engineer, true to his name, can spawn useful gadgets and provide ammo to the whole team while having a notable anti-vehicular capability that's mainly defensive but very strong. Also, it fixes mechanical things, including your mom's pleasure stick. This class and its weapons tend to be a baseline to which everything else gets compared to. Medic. Viagra, steroids and rubber, this thing's got drugs for days. Weapon-wise, it has the best type, the assault rifle available, yet due to support role often cowers behind everyone else. Reviving, healing, boosting shield regeneration with literally just one grenade. It can even exhume corpses of fallen comrades and raise a literal army. The futuristic necromancer. Heavy Assault, the favorite class of the tryhard wannabes who after massive kill streaks boast about it in public chats, shitting on everyone else because of their superior skill. While in reality their skill comes from pressing one button. But seriously, equipped with slower and less precise LMGs that benefit from spamming bullets like a teenager left with an internet for an hour, also possesses very capable and most useful anti-vehicular weaponry paired with increased survivability thanks to the shield ability. Overall, it's the powerhouse, despite LMGs sometimes being lesser than the carbines that engineers and light assaults use. Funny that. Oh, and on the side note, while the overshield ability is activated, the character is glowing like a fucking Christmas tree, and we'll get back to that. Max. Well, not really a class, but a vehicle, really. A step between humanity and a trash can. Basically, massive health, massive spam damage with little precision and movement, a typically walking tank, if you will. You might confuse it with Heavy Assault, but Heavy Assault is easier to play. And finally, our beloved Infiltrator. The biggest piece of shit in the game that at every step possible gets screwed over, abused, and hated. Has the ability to go invisible, and in order to pay for this invisibility, not counting the shared multi-class weapons and items, has the worst weapons, has the worst abilities, and at this point outsourced jobs. Oh, and for good measure, it also has AIDS. I mean, 100 points less shield than everyone else. And because it can go invisible, everyone on top hates you. I fucking love it!
Now, the way I describe these classes may be humorous, of course, but ever since 2012, that is the game's launch, I couldn't shake the feeling of getting the short end of the stick whenever I wanted to play smart. I mean, play Infiltrator. It always felt like the game reluctantly gave me stealth and told me, "Oh yeah? Well, fuck you too! I'm gonna take the good stuff from you on top!"
Let's then start from way back, when the game was fresh and these principles for each class were set. Infiltrator would mainly have snipers only, and if you were skilled or patient enough, you could have some impact on the battlefield, but mostly would run around and die a lot. Each faction also had two scout rifles, one semi-automatic, one that to this day is like squeezing lemon juice in your eyes, and the other one was the only automatic weapon, which by far was very notably worse than the carbines, LMGs, and not to mention assault rifles. Still, it was all we got. The only use for Infiltrator generally was spamming recon darts to see where enemies were coming from on the minimap, which helped a lot. Hell, there was even one crazy guy who called himself Recon Darts, and got to the top level of his character by, and you guessed it, doing nothing but spamming those darts. Still, in the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively minor help. Another skill that came in handy was hacking. You could hack enemy terminals, turning them to your faction's control, or hack turrets and use them against your enemy behind them. The skill, beyond minor annoyances, was only ever used at the very beginning of the game, when you would go behind enemy lines, hack the vehicle terminal, spawn a Sunderer, and park it. Your team would be able to spawn on it and quickly capture the base, while the opponent does not notice. Oh, and you would also sometimes sit on a point, cloaked, so that the enemy doesn't capture the next base, basically blocking them for, I don't know, 10 seconds or so. Quality gameplay, right?
Generally very niche and rather ultimately lame tactics that beyond just spamming recon weren't really that helpful, despite having this dangerous ability of stealth. Oh, and it's interesting that Infiltrator was the first class that gained Lumifiber armor. I repeat, a stealth class that gained a purchasable for money armor cosmetic that was quite literally a lead strip. I honestly can't fathom the stupidity or cynicism that developers had for this class. A literal glowing armor for a stealth class that, unlike heavy assault, would glow all of the time. Unless you cloaked, of course. How is this even stealth, if at all? Oh, wait, no, it's of course microtransactions. Fuck the game design, give me money! Oh, and actually speaking of that, if you enjoy my tirades, well, I do really appreciate even a single buck on my Patreon. So, well, maybe check it out down below.
In time, this class gained first multi-class weapons, weapons that were available to more than just one exclusively. SMGs, they were so powerful for Infiltrator, you could almost feel like you were playing a real class. But seriously though, these weapons were a little below carbines except point blank, and with Infiltrator's ability to close distance, finally you would see some actual normalcy. Then there was addition of one-hit kill knives and Stalker Cloak, which took away the primary weapon but allowed you to stay invisible for as long as you didn't move. Both introduced a few more fun ways to kill infantry, but that was about it. Killing infantry, and even then with a lot of effort. Alongside of that came the infamous crossbow. This weapon was great. A secondary weapon that could kill in a single headshot, yeah, that got quickly nerfed. But it also had explosive bolts, so would finally Infiltrator be able to do some damage to vehicles? Well, no, not really. At best it would be like tossing boogers at your crush during class. Very romantic, but ultimately got you in more trouble than it's worth. The third ammo type it possessed was recon darts. What the fuck were they thinking? Basically, because this weapon was available for every class, what was the point of having a weaker, less equipped Infiltrator in your team at that point? Seriously, back in the day with squad plays, we tried to substitute one of our dedicated recon bitches for one of us simply carrying this weapon. And aside from constant ammo issues, which were solved by an engineer, or better yet playing as one, the loss of Infiltrator was never felt. I genuinely cannot fathom what in the Higbee's name were the designers thinking.
Right, so listen, I hate Infiltrator. But sir, we took everything from it, we nerfed it to oblivion. Don't you think it had enough? Well, we need to take something from it, something useful. Well, we can take recon and maybe give it to everyone else?
So now, what was the point of having this class? Well, regardless, at least at this point there was a positive for the Infiltrator itself. After years of suggesting and asking, I got my wish. Well, kind of. The fourth ammo type for the crossbow was smoke. It was really useful. See, I've been asking for a smoke grenade for Infiltrator for obvious reasons for years, but only now we get it in a form of a secondary weapon.
Oh yeah, we also took that thing away from you. Now you get useless firebolts. Now we come to the present day, as I have returned, or at least while visiting, to make this examination on behalf of the Infiltrator. How has this class changed, or shall we say adapted? Well, as the time moved on and more guns, items and equipment got introduced, mostly it was shared stuff regardless, for other classes that might have been rather boring or downright trash, for Infiltrator, a class that basically lives off everyone else's trash, well, it was a ray of sunshine, even if it was projected through heavy assault's anus. Oh, and additionally, all the other classes also got Lumifiber armor.
And then there's the good old ASP system, the prestige where you could unlock additional abilities or features. Infiltrator? Oh, well, look at that, finally can get a smoke grenade with the ASP unlock. How amazing is that? First though, we do have to talk about Homoginy here. Now with the ASP system and countless shared weapons, I ask, what is the point of the class-based system in the first place? Seriously, forget Infiltrator for a second and ask yourself, why bother using class system at all? See, with class-based games, the core principle is that you have balanced and synergistic distribution of abilities, skills, and tools that enable and in fact demand team play. Look at Team Fortress. Despite every class going for kills, each does it differently and ultimately have their targets and hunters, pros and cons. For Planetside, ever since they introduced those SMGs, I always felt Planetside designers did not know or cared to play to the strengths of the class-based shooter. Sure, to this day, still the defining feature of a class is its ability, but with ASP system and a fucking loot box implants, you are inching closer and closer to Planetside 1's inventory system. Look at Tribe's Ascent. It used to be class-based. It worked well then, and then as the last update before they dumped the game, they drastically changed it and swapped it to inventory-based design. Both worked well and were fun, but this middle ground nonsense that Planetside 2 is warping into, why bother? Either stick to the class-based design and make every class unique as well as play off others, have its prey and its hunter, or do follow the example of the game's predecessor and commit to equipment-dedicated design. This wishy-washy approach needlessly confuses and ultimately obsoletes part of the game, namely here, Infiltrator, and quite often Max as well, weirdly, though no one talks about Maxes since they still have a use. Let's then take a moment and examine Infiltrator and its core abilities and battlefield tasks. Let's start with killing enemies. Most of your arsenal is notably weaker or slower killing than all other classes. Planetside is a massive multiplayer game as well, where killing one medic or engineer would just simply not have the same impact as it would have in Team Fortress 2 or Overwatch. And more to the point, for this task, vehicles or both assault classes are better fitted anyways. Okay, then, well, what about recon? Providing vision in minimap of enemy movement. That's super use. Wait. Now everyone can equip crossbow with recon dots, so the only thing that they don't have is that other recon tool, which is basically like icing on the cake at most. I mean, this was your strongest use case as a class, but now Infiltrator is in competition with every idiot around. Okay, fine. Stealth. My lovely stealth. I love invisibility, which makes you play smarter, not harder. I love this idea of being picky of your targets and routes, being clever, not just spamming your overshields like a fucking... I'm sorry, it's a rivalry we're having here, but anyways. Okay, wow. You can move a lot freer in the no man's land. You can get anywhere you want given a little time. Okay, now you're there. What now? Nothing? Well, the best thing you can do these days is spawn a Sunday and offer a spawn point until somebody destroys it in about 3 seconds. Or you can sit on a point and backcap, preventing enemy from moving forward for a few seconds until somebody kills you. Okay, well in that case you delayed enemy for about 10 seconds. Bravo! You spent 60 seconds getting there in the first place, so yeah, good job. Seriously, what is the point of stealth when you can't really do much with it? And no, killing enemies is not the case here. I already discussed it, just pick heavy instead. Okay, how about hacking and getting that behind the lines damage? Oh, wow, such useless junk. Fact is, since the start of the game, Infiltrator's hacking ability has been always a joke. In the real sense of Battlefield, it comes in handy maybe for 10 seconds. You hack a turret, kill a plane, then get bombarded by vehicles and other aircraft till the turret is dead. Okay, then what? Nothing. Okay, well, hack a terminal, get a Sunday out. It's dead in 10 seconds after being discovered. What then? Nothing again. You are literally better off picking up any class or vehicle and fighting in the vanguard.
Now, those that know me probably know where I'm going with this. However, before we go there, well, there's still a few things to get through. Like the weapons. In the time when everyone else got a rather interesting complementary selection of weapons and even new tools, well, Infiltrator gained Trap, for example, for Terran Republic, which I complained so well enough that developers changed it. Oh, and a new recon tool, I guess? Take, for example, Light Assault. In this time, it gained decent selection of carbines that complemented the constant movement or hip-fire accuracy, as well as a new tool for anti-vehicular activity. The Medic gained more drugs, Heavy Assault got fatter, and the Engineer got new, more interesting tools. While Infiltrator, well, that's a story. However, how can we fix it? How can we fix the poor little Infiltrator? Well, the writing was on the wall. And no, that wasn't it. In my mind, to give Infiltrator proper use in Planetside, there really was only mainly one way.
Light Assault poops on cars and explodes them. Heavy Assault catapults a cow and explodes them. Engineer spawns an ugly pog and vomits missiles and explodes them. Max humps and explodes them. Fuck, even Medic has a C4 and can explode them. And you, Infiltrator?
Ceasefire, I am an ally.
Do I need to spell it out? Vehicle hacking, yes. Ability to hack every vehicle in the game like you could with turrets. That also means hack them while they are occupied, like in Planetside 1. God damn it, I asked, begged and pleaded for this feature for such a long time. Hell, I even made a mock video for it back in the day. Now I know people hate getting killed by infiltrators quite often. Well, too bad, babies. How do you think I feel every time one of these professional gamers do this? Just like in Planetside 1, hacking a moving vehicle should be impossible due to its movement, and the fact that you are uncloaked means that you open yourself for an easy kill. But hell, if you get lucky, hacking that tank, kicking out the pilot and gunner and maybe killing them, or at least damaging enemies behind the lines, is a perfect thing for Infiltrator, and only complements stealth, which now would have a reason to exist. Now I could go on and how this should have been from the start in the game, but ultimately it's not, because I suspect the crybabies would cry very much. No more careless tank shelling of the spawns, now you have to either move or keep an eye out.
Long though it's been my goal playing Planetside 2 to see this feature happen, but will I ever? Will this most ever useless class be relegated to a second class infantry only fighter, or will it gain some actual use? Well, this question I asked my fellow creator, well, or at least one that used to be. Rel, hello there fella, I'm back, well at least for a little while. So, I know you've never seen an eye to eye with my favorite class, but come on mate.
Additionally, as I came back, I spotted that scout rifles are still trash. I honestly don't know why. Why, for example, they have the most annoying recoil, lower fire rate compared to even its own alternatives. Why, for example, Vanu Artemis is literally the most silent weapon in the game, while at the same time, the same version on NC side, Stalker with the suppressor sneezes like a trombone being played through your ass. Why is it that the throwing knife is such a piece of shit? Should it not be improved? At least to kill enemy in one hit if you don't want to improve the throwing mechanic. Oh, and of course, let's talk about my loved decoy nade, the literally most useless item in the whole game. Conveniently part of Infiltrator's arsenal, of course. No one, not a single person I know in their right mind would ever claim that this piece of equipment that cost both certs to unlock and also take up a whole equipment slot would ever be useful at anything. It's truly abysmal garbage. The only proper way to improve it, as I suggested a long time ago, but of course, does anyone listen to this Latvian? No, of course not. Anyways, I suggested to make this grenade into a holographic projector, that anyone shoots at it would get revealed for X amount of seconds. You know, like something in Warframe with Loki or Crysis 2. The shitty little sound that it makes now and the small recon blip it does is useless when literally this is happening next to you. Another suggestion I had regarding decoy nade was throw it out like yesterday's abortion. Instead of it, give Infiltrator smoke grenade by default. Simple as that. Smoke grenade that would help with stealth in more ways than you know. This is why I also used with my crossbow smoke. It was really useful. But finally we come to the ASP system. Yes, you can unlock the smoke grenade in this system, and no, it's really stupid to waste that point for Infiltrator. So let's take a look at the ASP system in general and its alternatives for the classes. With a single ASP point for Light Assault, you can unlock the ability to, oh look, use SMG as your secondary weapon. You know how fucking useful is that? For Heavy Assault, oh look, you can get Heavy Weapon as your secondary, a fucking hardlight barrier too! And Engineer, Jesus fucking Christ! Shotgun secondary, LMG access, infiltrator's EMP grenade. Why don't you rip my heart out through my anus already? Well, the infiltrator gets sticky grenade and flash grenades. Oh, well, hold the horses, stop the presses, we have a fucking miracle here.
I honestly don't know what to say after seeing what ASP system is or how tilted it is, not only for other classes but almost against Infiltrator itself. It's heartbreaking to see how little attention, if at all, goes into making classes unique and interesting to a point that where my favorite one gets relegated to basically a terminal hacking bitch for 10 useful gameplay seconds and then immediately gets swapped out for heavier light assault.
After nearly 10 years, I frankly have lost any hope of ever seeing vehicle hacking, despite the good work that the current dev team is doing to put passion into the game and keeping it fresh for the past 4 years. I also can't but to question the design principles and direction. Maybe Infiltrator, like Max, can just fuck off forever and no one will be the wiser. Well, maybe except for a random platoon leader who relies on a Max push once in a while. So yeah, with a few hopeful hints in the recent times for vehicle hacking mechanic, I'm just waiting and waiting. It's still been 10 years. 10 years of misery for a class that simply needed a purpose. I don't know if my words will be listened to, but as I beat the dead horse Planetside, well, maybe someone will. Ultimately, while other classes gain more powerful weapons or useful tools flat out, or alternatives, even with the ass system you can tell Infiltrator has always gotten shafted. Besides, if you start putting in so much cross-class gear, why bother with the class system to begin with anymore? It's been indeed a fun little visit, if not a return to Planetside. Like slipping into your unwashed smelly underpants. Yes, it itches, yes, it chafes, but there's something familiar and loved. Ultimately, here's to 10 years of the game. I'm glad to see it's a lot more alive than Planetside 1, but we all know that both combined would have been a beast. And one day, maybe when Planetside 3, if ever appears, I will be waiting you there on the battlefield. With my Miller brethren, with my KOTV outfit family, I will be there. So for now, I give out my outfit some love, so go on to Miller and join the bestest Vanu bunch. And if this examination, this literal dead horse smackdown pile driver was entertaining or informative, well maybe in turn you could toss me a buck on Patreon. All the links for Discord and more down below. The game is free to play, and unfortunately, yes, it has loot boxes called implants. And yes, even developers knew it was a really bad call, but I would still say give it a shot. It's like nothing else to take part in a massive battle with tons of people fighting. Still to this day, there's really no game like this in FPS genre out there, after all.
Planetside 2, a game Naders, ja? ja. Planetside 2, a great... Gosh, kad ieiet ritmā, jā. Roadkill, because it's so bafflingly bad. Like a... It's actually heartbreaking to see how little, if at all, attention goes into making classes unique. And... Yeah, very bad. Thanks. Okay. And guess what? Goodness. Here's a dead horse for you. Okay.